Welcome in to Not All There. I'm Chad. This is my podcast, and I'm happy you're joining me. Today's conversation is with my dear friend Vic, and it's a wonderful conversation, one that I think that you are going to enjoy and take a lot from. Our discussion today is, what do you do when you get bad news in sobriety? We don't really ever think about that, do we? We always think about, well, when I got bad news when I was drinking or using, that was the perfect opportunity to get fucked up, to blind it, to numb it, to push it down, to completely ignore it and try and forget about it. That does come back to haunt you, whether you're sober or not. The chickens on that one always come back to roost. But in sobriety, what do? It's kind of scary, isn't it? Well, Vic's here to tell you about what he does to handle the bad news that he's received in his life. And I'm here to tell you, he's had a couple of whoppers over the past year and a half. And it's an important episode for those who might be early in sobriety, might be halfway down the road in their sobriety. Halfway. There's no halfway. Multiple years into their sobriety. And it's been smooth sailing so far, but maybe you're starting to feel a little bumpy and you're not quite sure what to do. Well, Vic is a wise person, and he's got a lot of really good nuggets and information on what has worked for him, things you can try out. There's no magic potion to recovery. There are books. Sure. There's me. You can listen to this. It's all suggestions. It's up to you to find out what really works. It's a corny saying, but take what you need and leave the rest. That's it. Take what you need, leave the rest. And before we get to the conversation with Vic, I'd like to take care of a little business here, if you don't mind. And that is to ask, if you're enjoying the show, please do rate the show. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, Amazon, whatever platform you find it on, give a rating. Hopefully it's a good one. I hope you like the show. I'm really enjoying this. And leave a comment if you like. If you need to reach out to me offline, you can email me at notalltherepod@gmail.com. That's notalltherepod@gmail.com. All right, I'm stepping aside. Sit back and enjoy my conversation with Vic. Welcome in. I am here with Vic, a very close and dear friend of mine. And Vic and I were talking earlier and about what it's like to get bad news in sobriety. You know, a lot of people, and myself included, I used to do this. Whenever I got any bit of perceived bad news, whether it was, whatever, I got yelled at my boss or legitimately something tragic happened, it was the perfect excuse for me to drink over that or get high over it. And it was never, ever dealt with. And one thing in sobriety is you are left with nothing but to deal with it. You know, Vic is a very, very open person, and he has dealt with some bad news over the past year and a half. And, well, Vic, why don't you tell us about that?
I think it's going to be funny because Pat the plumber used to say, a good lead takes about 13 minutes. This is going to be the first time that I'm actually taking over 13 minutes to talk about anything in AA. And, and I've always kind of confined my comments to be, juicy, tight little tidbits of advice.
A type 5, man. Yeah.
And now this is going to be the first time I get to go and expound on it. Let me give you a little bit of background. I used to drink because I was happy. I used to drink because I was sad. I used to drink because I was insecure. I used to drink because, fuck it. I love to drink. It was fun. It was something that I was doing, and I was a daily user for the longest period of time. And as you go through life, you find occasions that are happy occasions to go and drink. And why not tie one on? Because celebrations are made for it. And in about 2000, my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer. My wife decided that she was going to be moving out of the country with the kids. And my way of dealing with the ups and downs of that whole situation was to crawl into a bottle of vodka
What better place to be?
It was the best place to go and anesthetize myself. Well, there's a problem with it because, at that time, news tends to go and compound itself. I don't know if you've ever found this. I mean, good news comes in like
Yes.
threes. Bad news comes in threes as well. And bad news compounded itself because the more you drink, the more bad decisions you make, and bad decisions have bad consequences. And I was running my business and I was making bad decisions, hiring people, firing people, financial decisions. All of a sudden, I've got a wife that's leaving me, a mother that is slowly dying of cancer, and bad decisions with consequences in terms of my work. And I was digging my hole deeper for myself with a handle of vodka. And I was, I was anesthetizing myself.
So was it like, what, a handle a night?
No, at that point, it was not at a handle a night. But I did have, by the time I was done, and this was in 2008, by the time I was done with that, and I had hit my bottom, I would have a handle in the trunk of my car. I would have a handle in the house, and I'd have a handle in the office. And I was constantly replenishing those handles. So I can't tell you if it was a handle a night. All I can tell you is I was spending a couple $100 a month on handles.
As one should.
And all of a sudden, the anesthesia wore off. And I was left with the shit. And I was left with the pit. And that was when I kind of hit my bottom.
What'd that look like?
The woman that I was with at the time kicked me out.
Okay.
I had all my worldly possessions inside of 2 garbage bags, living in a spare room at my sister's house for about 2 weeks until my dad could co-sign an apartment for me.
Still running your business.
Into the ground.
Yeah.
I mean, just basically skirting with bankruptcy. And it was not a very, my bottom did not involve any law enforcement agencies or the court system or any of that. My bottom involved liver problems. My bottom involved being basically ostracized from so much of my family, my friends, my community. It was that pathetic way of people looking at you. There it goes. There's that shaking of the head. Yeah. And, they think that they know what's going on, but they don't really know what's going on because only I know what's going on. And if you lived my life, you'd have to drink you'd have the way that I drank.
Motherfuckers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Don't give me your petty bourgeois judgment. And it was not a pretty bottom. It was really depressing. When I reached my bottom 2 weeks later, I walked into St. Mary's Parish on a Tuesday night, listened to a lead about the history of the Foster Park group. I had no idea what the fuck was going on.
It was history night?
Yeah, it was history night. And I just said to myself, okay, I got it out. It's kind of like the first kiss when you're dating with somebody. You get it out. You get it out of the way. We can now move on to the real business. Right. And that was, that was when I first admitted to myself and to everybody around me that I'm an alcoholic. And I remember the laughter in the rooms, and I wanted it. Yeah. And because there was nothing that I was smiling about. And I was very diligent about it, because I like to excel in that which I choose to put my mind to. And I read the big book, and I got my first sponsor, and I started working on my 4th step inventory almost immediately. And I just embraced it, and the program embraced me back. And I got a service commitment. I was the person that took out the trash at St. Mary's for about 15 years. Because I am that person. Yeah. But no, seriously, I love that meeting, and that was until I reached the attic. Until I reached the attic, that was my home group. I remember when you came into that.
Well, you used to sit in the back with that gigantic vape, whatever it was. Some of these billows
of smoke coming around me because nobody could tell me what to go and do. But that was you cut the vape. I mean, before that it was cigars, and I would just be out with my little cigars, smoking in the courtyard. With all my smoker friends. That was a funny thing too, because before I came into AA, I had quit smoking, and it was back when I got back into AA was when I started that tobacco,
the fix
fiend.
And
it was quite a fiend. But I embraced sobriety, and I really embraced life being sober. And I would say that my first 10 years in sobriety was really good. Yeah. It was really good. It was really solid. I got married in sobriety. I'd married off my daughter in sobriety. Now, since then, I've married off 4 out of my 5 kids in sobriety. We now are in the process of adopting 2 more kids into our family. Sobriety has been really, really, really good to me. And then shit started happening.
Yeah, what happened?
February 7th, 2023. My dad and I had a really close relationship. I would call my dad at 8 o'clock in the morning every morning. You could set your watch by the phone call that I would have with my dad at 8 o'clock in the morning. And throughout the day, we would talk. And then, at night, put him to bed, between 6, 7 o'clock. That was the last time that I'd call him because, my dad was, he lived alone in Evanston. He had a lady friend, a companion, a long-term companion that we're still very close with. February 7th, I called. No answer. 9 o'clock, I called. No answer. 9:30, I called my sister, and she said, let's go over there. And at 10 o'clock, we met over there, and she got there 5 minutes before me. And my dad had passed. He apparently had a aneurysm of one of the arteries going to his heart. Now, he had spoken with his girlfriend at about 11 o'clock at night. He was in the process of replacing the water filter in his refrigerator. He was 89 years old. He was lucid. He had voluntarily given up his driving privileges.
Wow.
Voluntarily. He said, I don't see really well at night. I don't see really well on my right eye. But he still would go to classes, and he would go to theater, and he'd go to movies, and he was living his best self, and he was in a committed relationship, and life was good. And then he wasn't. When my mom passed, I crawled into that handle. I crawled into that vodka bottle. I remember when we were, the Jewish period of mourning is 7 days after the funeral. We received visitors at the house, and for that whole 7 days that after my mom had passed, was one ginormous vodka tonic. I was drunk, like, for most of that time. I was just, but I was handling myself well. I wasn't falling down drunk. Right. I was just totally lit. I was totally lit and totally numb that whole time. Yeah. When my dad passed, I was totally present.
That must have been a beautiful thing.
Fuck. It was a hard thing.
Right. You were there and able to.
So the first day, February 7th, was a Tuesday. Where do I go on Tuesday nights? St. Mary's. Where did I go that Tuesday night?
St. Mary's.
I don't know what the lead was. All I remember is getting up in front of everybody and saying, I'm here. That's what happened to me.
I was there.
It wasn't easy. I had dear friends, our good friend Danny, who had passed. But, Danny passed quickly, comparatively. He was diagnosed with pancreatic and liver cancer on June 8th. And by July 8th, he was
gone.
Transitioned. But I had that month to go and say goodbye to him. I didn't have a month to go and say goodbye with my dad. I had that conversation on Monday the 6th. The last words that he said to me and the last words that I said to him were, I love you. And I was left with this incredible void. And so I used the program to kind of help me work it through and to talk it out. It didn't mean that I cried any less. It didn't mean that I didn't, but I was feeling that sadness. And I was able to go and deal with that sadness. And I was honest with that sadness. And I bore that sadness. And I bore that sadness, with my friends, especially our guys on Thursday nights. I kind of opened myself up with that, and I opened up myself with the pain. And a burden, where does a burden have? And, suffice to say that everybody in the group, was there to go and was present and was there for me. And about a month later, I was in my office and I was working. And I looked down and there's a puddle of blood in my lap. And I was like, fuck. And so I went to immediate care and they discovered a tumor. And they said, you got to go straight to dermatology. So I go to dermatology and now you got to go straight to the surgeon. So I went to the surgeon and the tumor was removed. And the surgeon was like, oh, yeah, it'll be fine. Don't worry about it.
I remember that.
And I was like breathing a sigh of relief and, laughing on Thursday night with the guys. Look what happened.
Dodged it.
Dodged it. Bullshit. Karma is a bitch, and Karma came back to go and tell me, oh yeah, the tumor is cancerous and type 4 tumor, and we're going to have to go and do some other surgeries. That tumor was in my fucking groin.
Yeah, it was. We can laugh now.
We're laughing about it now. I was not laughing about it then, and I was not laughing about it. On the 3 subsequent surgeries, actually 2 subsequent surgeries, when they were going in and checking the margins and trying to go and do the deep biopsies on the tumor, and it turned out to go and be metastatic melanoma. And I thought that I dodged the bullet because I thought it was stage 2. And so I was like, dude, don't worry about it. A little bit of immunotherapy. I'll be good as new. Bullshit.
Gonna lose some weight.
Yeah, I'll lose some weight on this. I'll get my chemo body up. Fuck that. No, it did not happen that way. I went to the PET scan before we started the therapy, and they discovered that I was stage 4 that had metastasized to both my lymph nodes and to my lungs. How are you going to go and deal with that one?
I don't know how you're dealing with it.
You deal with it by looking it straight in the eye and declaring yourself. There was a story that was told about a Israeli general. He happened to be the commanding general of my son's unit in the Israeli army. He's a big, huge guy. 2.5 times Vic.
That's a big motherfucker.
Yeah, he's a big fighter, and he's all these things. And he went camping on a guided tour in Alaska.
Okay.
And in Alaska, they have bears.
They have grizzlies.
They have grizzly bears.
They're big.
And they're big. They're bigger than he is, actually. And they're fast, and they can run faster than he can.
Yes, they can.
And they can swim faster than he can.
Yes,
and they can climb trees faster than he can.
Yes, they can.
So what do you do if you see a grizzly bear in the forest?
There are a couple options, but you probably should just, tuck. But you can make yourself larger.
You stand your ground.
You make yourself larger.
You make yourself larger. And you identify yourself. And that's exactly how I dealt with this fucking grizzly of cancer. And I just said, this is it. And I'm going to go and deal with this. I'm going to have my good days. I'm going to have my bad days. And I'm going to have my posse, my AA family right behind me. I've got my family, but that ain't my AA family. My family, my wife works as a social worker at the cancer center where I'm being treated. So that is really good because I get to go through everything with her, and she is definitely my right hand. She's my everything.
That level of understanding must be.
She understands everything that's going on. Yeah. And it's different for her because when it happens to somebody else, it's happening to somebody else. When it's happening, first person for her husband, it's different for her. So we have that degree of communication between ourselves. But and my sister is right alongside me. And my sister, each time that I've been hospitalized, my sister's been there and has been alongside me. And my kids have been, all of them, all 7 of my kids. It's just been amazing. But you got to go and deal with this grizzly.
You deal with it with a level of grace that I was not aware that even existed within a person. I mean, I've heard stories about it, like they were so graceful during it, and you're like, oh, that's really nice to hear. But when you see it first person, it's amazing.
When I deal with that the same way that I deal with my program. I know how to go and reach out. So we have some of our friends, and I'm not going to violate their anonymity in terms of the disease. We have some of our friends in our group that are now facing cancers that are much more rapacious than mine.
Yes.
And they're dealing with it with a certain level of grace and strength that I can only hope to aspire to. We have our dear friend's wife who is dealing with nasty cancer, and I've gotten so much strength from her.
She's a fucking warrior, man.
She's my idol. She's my superhero.
Was she like 5 feet tall?
And just like 5 feet nothing. And she's my and she's a badass. And when I was really scared, I needed somebody. And how do we do this in our program? Well, we go to somebody that we speak the same language.
Exactly.
The sun is that energy that the program just magnifies, and that energy becomes that fire that burns within inside us. And I've been able to go and do that. And so I've been doing that with my friends in our group that also have cancer, and getting a lot of strength from them, and hopefully giving them some strength as well. And glad to be aboard both of these journeys of recovery with them, because motherfucker, we are going to recover.
You are.
And with my friend's wife, being there for her and being there for them and being with them and kind of getting kind of that contact buzz from their recovery and for their, and when they've got good news, boy, that really just
absolutely
makes me soar. And then diving into the program and using the same tools that I got in the program, because the program, when all you have is a hammer, all the world's a nail.
Yep.
And, I guess anesthesia and anesthetic, that was the hammer that I used to knock myself out with.
Mm-hmm.
And now I have so many tools in my toolbox. It's a fucking workshop, I've got tools that I know how to deal with the financial issues that I've been going through. And guess what? I don't have financial issues anymore because I was able to go and repair a lot of them. And I'm always looking to go and help people when I can to do it. And even if it's just an advice, how do you go and start a business? How do you start a practice? How do you go and do something like that? I've got a few years of experience. I'm able to go and hand that out when people come and they ask me. If they don't ask me, I'm not going to be an asshole and go,
here's what you should be doing.
Here's what you should be doing. Nobody likes it. I learned how to go and reach out. I learned how to go and accept help. And I got a new spiritual dimension.
How'd you get that? That's the aspect of the program that actually, of any recovery, really, I think that the higher power aspect of it, you're never really going to truly, I believe, find a level of recovery or self-love or just a level of love and communication and connection with other people unless you find something above you. And dealing with the death of your father and then shortly thereafter, your cancer diagnosis, how did you get there?
So let me tell you a story.
I love your stories.
When I got divorced from my first wife, I had to go and fight that divorce in 3 separate courtrooms. I had to fight it in family court in Israel. I had to fight it in religious court in Israel. And I had to fight it in the circuit court of Cook County. 18th floor of the Daily Center. That cost me most of my retirement savings in 2006. Probably all my retirement savings in 2006. It cost me a lot of money. And it was that experience in the religious court and dealing with those religious things that made me not want to touch religion.
Right.
And I was really good. My shadow did not darken a synagogue door for up until February 2023.
No shit.
I did not go into. I mean, I had to when I had to.
Of course.
But otherwise, I would not go into. And so, my kids, when they would come visit me, my kids are Orthodox, and my kids, when they would come visit me, would go to the synagogue, around the corner from my house. Actually, about a 15-minute walk. And I never went there. I never even passed by there. I couldn't care less about it. The day that we married my dad was a Friday. And my son said, come to the synagogue with us. And I basically didn't have anything to go and stand on. I didn't want to go at home. I didn't want to deal with cooking dinner. I didn't want to deal with any of that other stuff. I said, you know what? Let me go in. And we met the rabbi of the synagogue in the parking lot. And he was like, Levinson kids, what are you guys doing here? It's the middle of the winter. You guys are normally here in the summer. And they said that, my grandfather died. And oh, by the way, here's my dad, who you've never seen in 15 years. And he just came over and he gave me a big hug. He didn't say anything. He just gave me a big hug. And so then I went to the service. And then the next day he came over to our house. The next Saturday night he came over to our house. And he described the funeral. And he said, you and your sons put your dad to bed. You put him to his final resting with love, with care, with compassion. You, not strangers. You did. Because my sons literally put the dirt on the grave. You, not machines. You are all together and you surrounded him with love. And after that, I said, I'm going to listen to this guy. And then the following week, I started going kind of on a regular basis. And then when I got my diagnosis, he was one of the first people that I told about my diagnosis. I told the guys in our group first, and then I told him second. And he said, think good, and good things will happen. So simple. And I said, you're full of shit.
Fuck you, man.
Fuck, I'm going through this. He said, think good, and good things will happen. And I thought that was going to be the end of my religious reawakening.
Yeah.
And he gave me a book to read called Why God Why. And basically, we are nothing but cavemen. We're nothing but cavemen watching an open heart surgery done by a master surgeon. We don't understand what's going on. We think that what's going on is the worst, most painful, sadistic thing that can happen. And that how could somebody be so cruel as to go and do something like this? And we don't realize that it's ultimately for good. Like a caveman watching a surgery. Whatever my higher power has decided to go and do, no matter how much it hurts me right now, he's doing it in such a way that is showing his infinite love for me. Mm-hmm. And that was that spiritual part of the program that I never understood until that moment. And then I would say, honestly, I completed my third step after, 15 years of sobriety. That was when I completed my third step.
It takes a long time sometimes.
That I had to go and give it up, and I had to realize that my higher power really loves me, and that what we're doing it for good. And then I started to actually follow his advice. So he ordered he asked me to go and give a lead at the synagogue. There's a holiday where we learn the night before the day of the holiday, and so there's like a whole evening service. And
which holiday is that?
This is Shavuot, and it comes 49 days after Passover, and it's a holiday of giving of the commandments at Mount Sinai.
Are we coming up on it?
Oh yeah. And so the night before you study, and the way that they have it, they have 10 talks, and everybody comes to listen to the 10 people that are giving the 10 talks. It's kind of a play on TED Talks. Shh, don't tell TED Talks. And that day, I had my second surgery, and they installed a pump on my wound. And I said to the doctor, I'm giving a class tonight. I'm going to go and speak for 10 minutes. And she said, you're crazy. And my wife got really upset with me, and my mother-in-law actually drove me to the synagogue, and she was there, and she was just beaming. And I gave a talk on AA and spirituality and the 12 steps and being closer to God through the 12 steps of AA. And that was the subject of my talk. And I pushed myself. Yeah. I really pushed myself. And I wasn't gonna be a victim.
Yes.
And I wasn't gonna be a martyr, and I wasn't gonna do anything else. I was gonna think good, and everything was gonna be all right.
And was it?
I'm here.
You are.
You know what? It was fantastic. And by the way, since then I've had 3 people come up to me, and they've got like issues. And it was a perfect 12-step call.
Yeah.
For a population that doesn't believe in, that we have those types of issues.
I did not know that.
Yeah. It's a beautiful thing. And then, I had this newfound spirituality, and then the last thing that happened are the events that have happened subsequent to October the 7th. My eldest daughter lives on a kibbutz on the border between Israel and Gaza. And on October 7th, she was visiting her mother-in-law and father-in-law 20 minutes away from there. She wasn't there. The kibbutz was under attack for 18 hours and was never overrun. Every building, including their house, sustained damage, but they weren't there. My 2 sons and 1 son-in-law were immediately called into active reserves, and they had been fighting in that area, and they were fighting for 5.5 months. My daughter and her husband were evacuated from their home. They were living basically as refugees with clothes on their backs in a hotel in central Israel. And I had to go and be here, and I was undergoing a nasty round of therapy. And I was in and out of the hospital. And I was dealing with all this. I wasn't anesthetizing myself. I was dealing with this head on. I was talking about. I was talking to people in the program. I was actually praying, and I knew who I was praying to. I was able to go and confront a lot of my fears, and I was able to go and kind of put myself in the right proportion. It wasn't all about me. I was no longer king baby.
Yeah. What do you mean by that? People talk about that a lot. King baby, getting right-sized, right?
Getting right-sized.
Yeah.
I'm the most important thing in the world. Well, fuck it. No, you're not. But no. You're really not.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are things that go on that you have absolutely no power to go and deal with. And so what are the results of that? results of that are that I have a new daughter-in-law. One of my sons got married. I have 3 new granddaughters.
How many total do you have?
I have 3.5. I'm going to have another one in August.
Mazel tov.
Yeah. So, it's one of these things where, 2 grandfathers meet on the street. I just excellent. Pretty good. I got 2 more grandkids. And luckily, I think that I'm able to go and take the joy in life. I have a beautiful relationship with my wife. I'm really proud of that. I'm proud that we've been able to go and foster 2 amazing kids. And I love my foster daughters.
How long have they been with you?
5 years.
Jeez.
Yeah, so we did the pandemic with them. Yes. We did the pandemic with them, and now we're going through this long involved process, and we're going to be adopting. So I'm going to have 7 kids.
That is great.
And my wife and I think have become a lot closer. We've confronted a lot of the issues that were involving us frontally, honestly, and I think we've created a really positive environment. That's not to say that everything is a bed of roses.
God, no.
But there is no bed of roses.
No, does not exist.
And roses have thorns.
They do.
And it's not a bed of thorns. But it's not a bed of thorns. And, some days, like today, I had my kitchen therapy.
Yeah.
Kitchen therapy. I love kitchen therapy.
I do. Every night, man.
Yeah.
Every night I clean that motherfucking kitchen.
It's my zen.
It is.
It's my sin.
I'm such a dick when I go in there, but by the time I finish, man, I'm like, yeah, okay, now I can go to bed.
Yeah. So, and now I've discovered ways of going and right-sizing myself and getting that king baby out. Kitchen therapy is one of the ways of doing that. I found other hobbies and other activities that right-size me that I do with other members of our group. And I love just speaking to my sponsees. I've got 4 sponsees. 3 I speak to kind of on a regular basis. 1 is just out there, and I think he's a I'm a Sino. He's a Sino, sponsee in name only.
Oh, wow. I wonder who he's talking about.
Yeah, I'm not. No, definitely not present. Definitely not present company. But that other one, when he hears this, he'll know who he is, and I'm not going to shame him by name. But I do know sign language.
I know exactly what you're talking about, man. I know exactly who you're talking about.
And and so when I take a look at at what's happening in sobriety, life, but think good and it'll be good. I gotta go back to what my rabbi told me. Ach gut und sein gut. It's in Yiddish. And you know what? He's right. If you keep that attitude, and if you're able to go and deal with the stuff frontally. And remember, you got a higher power, and that higher power loves you. And you've got people in the program, and you got to reach out to them. And a burden shared is a burden held. And you deal with the stuff, and you deal with grace, and you deal with it out of a sense of love. And that's how you go around doing it. And this other way of going and dealing with it, the handle theory, there are not enough handles to go and anesthetize you anymore.
No, there are not. Before we head out of here, I want to, there are bad days. There are days that we can't, our tools don't necessarily get us through that emotion, whatever we're feeling. What do you do? How do you handle that? Do you allow yourself to feel shitty and just move through it?
The same way that I fucking deal with cancer. I am who I am. This is my place. You're not allowed to be here. I acknowledge the fact that I'm having a bad day.
Yes.
I'll go and I'll clean the kitchen.
Yeah.
I'll go and do something that is going to make me feel really good.
And that's good to own that, to know that about yourself.
Absolutely.
I feel that, I still struggle with that. I've gotten a lot better about that. But there is this ego that we all have where we won't allow ourselves that space to be nice to ourselves, to be kind to ourselves, to allow ourselves, hey, I feel like shit, I'm in a bad mood. It's fine to say, I'm in a shitty mood. I just need some space right now.
It's funny. It's a really good point that you bring up, and hopefully you're not going to cut this part out. This is not going to be on the digital cutting room floor.
I cut very little.
Ego is easing God out.
Yeah. There you go.
And our ego resides in two different places. Our ego resides in the past, woulda, coulda, shoulda, woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Right.
And it resides in the future, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. If I'm having a bad day and my ego is taking over, what is it doing? It's easing me out of the present. It's easing me out of the here and now. Now, I don't know about you, but if my higher power created this whole world for me and for my benefit, and he dealt me three cards that I got to go and play, happy, joyous, and free. And he came down from on high and saw me muttering to myself, shitty day. He would bitch me. You're allowed to go and have a bad day. Then you have to go and right-size yourself. And then you have to go and concentrate on the here and now. And if what you can concentrate on is cleaning the kitchen, clean the goddamn kitchen. It's the best thing you can do.
I could not have said it any better, man. This has been beautiful, Vic. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
All right. I love you.
Love you, man.
There you have it. That was my conversation with Vic. What'd you think? I loved it. It was so much fun. I'm really happy with how it turned out. He has so much wisdom and grace and gratitude, and he's the best. I don't know what more to say about Vic than that. Keep coming back. I've got some more episodes lined up. I've got a few more friends stopping by. We're red hot and we are rolling here at Not All There. And again, if you have any suggestions of topics that you'd like to hear discussed about sobriety, recovery, or maybe a great 70s movie, I don't know, you can reach me at notallthere@gmail.com. Not All There Pod, notalltherepod@gmail.com. One more time, notalltherepod@gmail.com. All right, you go out there, you face the day, you take good care of yourself, you be kind and loving to yourself and to others. All right, we all need it right now, a little more than we have in the past. Be kind and loving, all right? Give yourself a great big old hug because you deserve it. And I will see you next time. Take care.